Hey YouTube, Warbles on a lot here, Sunday the 11th of December. Pantomime in the middle of The Outsiders.
Spirit of Christmas, Tony Abbott wearing a sheet, of the impending visit from the ghost of Christmas past and future, but not the present because it took a redundancy. The Prime Minister is watching television.
Wasn't it nice of Peter Dutton to lend me his box set of The Love Boat? And I'm binge watching it. It's on Netflix, but I can't get the blasted broadband to work. Thank heavens for Betamax is all I can say.
Whoa, whoa. It is I, the ghost of Christmas past.
Good heavens. It's Mark Scott, former managing director of the ABC.
Hello, Prime Minister. Lovely to see you again. I miss all of you quite a bit, you know. But what I really miss the most is Senate estimates. Who would have thought it? However, I think the crowning achievement of my time at the ABC was taking a little-known cartoonist and making him into a household name.
Who? John Kudelka?
No. Walkley Award-winning cartoonist for The Guardian, first dog on the moon.
I've never heard of him.
Anyway, look, I've got these leftover cab charges. Can you make sure they get to everyone at the ABC?
Aren't you supposed to talk to me about Christmas past?
Oh, look, I'm sure you can catch it on iView. I'm very proud of that too. I must be away.
Oh, God, who is it now?
Malcolm, it is I, the ghost of Christmas future.
Nick Xenophon? Oh, for God's sake.
Malcolm, look at this headline in the Australian newspaper for December 24th, 2019.
Scientists find tapeworm the size of Chris Mitchell.
No, not that one.
Polar ice caps melt and oceans rise 6 meters. Still might not be climate change.
No, this one.
Oh, Prime Minister Hanson annexes Sudetenland.
We'll be right back with the exciting conclusion of a very first dog Christmas after this.
That's after me. And you're joined by our outsiders once more, who, well, none of whom include Nick Xenophon. No, they're Toby Ralph, they're Sophie Black, they're Sabine Wolf and Sinclair Davison. I thought we'd look forward a little bit. We sort of got a little bit lost in the mire that was 2016, and we're going to ask Sabine for her predictions for the year to come because she is so reliable in this matter. But that's the thing, I guess, Toby. Is it any longer possible to anticipate and predict?
Oh, you know, in Russia, I was just in Russia, and they've got a wonderful saying there saying...
Sorry, you were...
Just
in Russia. It all makes sense.
Over there, they were saying, in Russia, the past is unpredictable because they get so many different twists and turns. Those guys. Yeah, those guys. All the good lines. Yeah, but it's so hard. I mean, I got Brexit wrong. I got the Queensland election wrong. I got the federal election result wrong. I got Trump wrong. I got everything wrong.
So what's the thing that we're not getting, though, in making those failed predictions? How are we getting Brexit and Trump wrong?
We're listening to ourselves too much in one area, and there are a whole bunch of people who are just saying, enough. There's we've seen the evaporation of average. We've seen all these people who have lost their jobs, who have awful situations, manufacturing, moving around the world, and a lot of people just feeling disconnected from politics, and they're finally speaking up. They might not speak up to researchers and focus groups and all the rest, but when they get a chance to deal a blow, they deal that blow, and it's untrackable.
You were shaking your head. Sorry, you were nodding in vigorous agreement.
Well, yes. I mean, I think 2016 was the humiliation of the elites. Trump, Brexit, Hawthorne going out in straight sets in the grand final. There were some good things, of course, but but yes, but it was a humiliation of the elites, and I think we're seeing more of that. The French and German elections next year are going to be very interesting to observe and see what happens. I think the European Union will continue to unravel. So I think it's going to be business as unusual, because it's going to be very unusual, and it's going to be 2016 playing out, because as Brexit starts to play out.
How does that play out economically? I mean, what does Trump, for example, has some interesting ideas that turn our normal assumptions.
There are upsides and downsides. I think the idea of starting a trade war with the Chinese is going to be a disaster. if he does that. I think the idea of lowering the company tax rate in the United States to 15% is going to be very interesting to watch, because all of a sudden the United States will become the world's biggest tax haven, because they don't share information with anybody, and at 15%, there's going to be a lot of money flowing into the States. Now, I mean, obviously, those two things push in opposite directions as to what's going to be happening. I'm hoping for the tax changes, but not the trade war. Given what happened this year, I might get the trade war and not the tax changes. So it's all a bit worrying as to what's going to be happening there.
There's also that interesting phenomenon about media fragmentation and the way that people aren't talking to each other anymore. There are, as someone said, the day after the Brexit result, there are two halves of the country that they have no idea what the other is thinking. There's a lot of that talk around Facebook and people remaining firmly in their bubbles, but there's also politicians who've really mastered social media, such as Trump and Pauline Hanson. They're speaking to people in their own channels now. And it means that there isn't this overriding kind of wisdom or view that there may have once been that the mainstream media then reflected. And the media called all of these, and I say this as somebody who is currently on the media.
That microphone in front of you. That talks to the country.
we called everything wrong. But I think it's really interesting to pick up on this point of media fragmentation and this death of the expert. Expert opinions count for so very little anymore, because people can channel their news to really whatever they like, and it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. But it's based on feelings and what other people share and say. And the problem for political parties, major political parties, is that they have absolutely no idea what to do about it. They've gone to data segmentation and fragmentation of the message into ever tinier amounts to try and micro-target these groups. But they do seem to have got lost in the process. They don't actually have an overarching vision. And I think fundamentally, until they do, they're going to keep falling into a hole.
Is that the thing, Toby? It's not so much that, when we talk about vision, normally we talk about a sort of a policy-based thing and what you're going to do. But there's a vision here for political parties and political groups about how they might actually conduct politics. I mean, that's the thing that's left them wrong-footed. That's the thing they need to reacquaint themselves or redevelop and redefine.
It is. I had a great mate who's dead now called Paul Cowdy, who was a great political advisor. He always gave advice to politicians. He said, if you want people to think you've got a vision, just use the word. And he'd do that. But yeah, I mean,
we can see how that's ending up, really, can't we?
Well, we can. Look, I think major political parties at the moment are going the way of department stores and Bakelite phones. They really haven't changed since the 70s and 80s. They've been tweaking, but they're the same old things. And society's changed faster than that. Very simple.
I wonder, Sophie, whether, I mean, we talk about, Brexit blindsided us, that Trump blindsided us, that the populist movements with a fundamentally conservative, rightish skew. Is it the triumph of that set of ideas, or is this an absolute failure of progressive politics to actually come up with some sort of a response or some sort of a coherent message which people can find some faith in as well?
I think it's a perfect storm of a lot of different things. I think there is a measure of failure there, yes, absolutely, that they haven't heard the rumblings, they haven't tapped into that. But I think there's look, if 2016 teaches us one thing, it's Trump. It's with the Trump, the rise of one nation and Brexit. It's sometimes that the people just have horrible judgment, with the notable exception of Bodie McBoatface, the naming of Bodie McBoatface.
That was definitely a year's highlight.
I think that's interesting. I mean, now with the benefit of hindsight, I look back at it, but Obama also a rank outsider, right? Like it is the same coin, if you like, but rather a different side of it that's leading us to have both, Obama 8 years ago and Trump now. It's a reaction against the norm, against politics as usual. We just happen to have got the fear side instead of the hope side this year. Obama himself, though, interestingly argues that he had a chance before the rise of social media and this prevalence of fake news. He had a chance to get to people to be heard properly that candidates don't necessarily have now, which is quite an interesting, new and quite terrifying phenomenon.
I mean, the other possibility, Sinclair, is the whole left-right thing is becoming inoperable and inoperative. I mean, it's increasingly meaningless divisions.
Oh, I quite like the left-right thing because it does work quite
know where you
well.
stand.
Yeah, you know exactly where you stand, and you're on the outer. Look, I don't like the idea of blaming the electorate for outcomes that we don't like or that we didn't anticipate or what have you. It's actually politicians' jobs to go out there and get the people. It may well be that they are seeing the message and just not liking it. So there is that too. So I think as commentators, as sort of liberally minded people, we should look to ourselves and say, well, what are we doing wrong as well? We're not selling the message that globalism is actually a good thing. We're not selling the message that more immigration is better than less immigration. We're not selling the message that an open society is better than a closed society.
And yet, all those things are good things in part. I mean, this is the message of Trump and Brexit, that the benefits of those things are not widely distributed or shared.
Well, yes, that is the argument. I'm not quite convinced it's true either. But again, this is us failing to sell our story, failing to say that we live in a better society than our ancestors.
I think the interesting thing though about 2017, which will be what happens next. It's all very well to give the establishment and the elites the finger, but what do the people then expect of those candidates?
And can they deliver? I mean, this is the thing for Trump, isn't it, Sabine? I mean, he promises, we'll get those steel mills back, you people in the Rust Belt states, but that's not going to happen.
No, and I think that much like people who invested in Obama realised that actually the situation hadn't improved too much, the same thing will happen to Trump. And this is a phenomenon across modern politics, right? The delivery portion just isn't happening, and that's what's leading people to ever crazier candidates.
And the delivery of Trump, Toby, is huge, that expectation.
Well, I think he just has to do a few symbolic things. He's been quite refreshing, it's been quite a relief to watch him, for example, with South Korea, right? He said, we'll get rid of the 28,000 American troops there. Day after the election, someone sat him down, explained there's South Korea, North Korea, China, South China Sea, bad idea. And he said, okay, well, I won't then. I think he just needs to start taxing Mexicans or something, and he'll please his electorate.
Toby Ralph, Sinclair Davis and Sophie Black and Sabine Wolf, your outsiders. We'll be back.
Okay, they're going to start a new pantomime, so I'll start a new video.